One morning, a nun brought a boy named Jono to an orphanage, believing he would be safe and cared for. However, the place turned out to be a front for a horrific operation where children were imprisoned and their organs harvested for sale. Jono was placed in a room with a teenager named Pilar, who assured him they would find a way to escape and promised to rescue the other children as well. But just after making that vow, Pilar was abruptly taken away by the staff. They say he is next in line to have his organs harvested. Once Pilar is sedated and the operation begins, Arif, the man running the illegal operation, receives a visit from a wealthy businessman named Bob, who has come to purchase Pilar's organs. As they observe the procedure, Bob asks Arif if he ever feels any guilt about what he does. Arif admits he used to, but claims he's learned to ignore it. He said that regret would only hinder his path to success. But just as Arif finished speaking, Bob suddenly gripped his shoulder tightly. Back in the operating room, the doctor was preparing to cut into Pilar's abdomen when Bob suddenly aimed his weapon at Arif and shot him on the spot. It was then revealed that Bob was actually Topan, a hitman from an elite group known as the Big Four, sent to rescue Pilar, who was also a member of their team. They even had an inside accomplice Alpha, a nurse working in the operating room. After taking down several guards, Alpha, Pilar, and Topan headed straight to another room to rescue the remaining children. They carried out their mission exactly as their boss had instructed. Once all the kids were gathered and ready to escape the orphanage, another member of the Big Four, a skilled sniper named Django, stepped in to cover them, showcasing his precision. Thanks to their teamwork, every child was safely rescued. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a woman named Dina was waiting for her father at a photo studio. She's a police officer, and with her inauguration approaching, she wanted to take a picture with him to mark the occasion. Her father, Petrus, arrived shortly after unbeknownst to Dina. He was actually the leader of the Big Four. Petrus had kept his real profession as a hitman a secret from his daughter, though he promised himself that one day he would tell her the truth. He took his daughter home, then returned to his headquarters to have dinner with the Big Four members, whom he treated like his own children. That evening, as they shared a meal together, the group watched a news report about Arif's orphanage. The broadcast confirmed that the children had been rescued. However, Police Chief Hassan stated that, despite the Big Four's heroic actions, they would still face legal consequences, because in his eyes, saving the kids didn't erase the fact that they were still criminals. They were still accountable for breaking the law and taking lives during the rescue mission. After watching the news, Petrus told the Big Four that he was retiring from the hitman life. He hoped that Topan, Alpha, Django, and Pilar would continue running the business without him. Petrus seemed ready to enjoy a peaceful retirement with his daughter Dina, realizing it was time to protect her as well. On top of that, he wanted to avoid any conflict with Hassan, his best friend and the current police chief. The following day, as Petrus was getting ready to attend Dina's police inauguration ceremony, he noticed a stranger pacing nervously outside his house. Sensing something off, Petrus grabbed his gun and quickly opened the door only to find his neighbor, who mentioned that a courier had just delivered the flowers he ordered. Petrus had, in fact, he ordered flowers the day before as a gift for Dina. He told the courier should have delivered them directly to his home. But things took a dark turn as Petrus had walked into a trap. The so-called courier was actually an assassin in disguise, who stabbed Petrus with a dagger to kill him on the spot. Shortly after, Topan came by to return Petrus' hat, which he had forgotten at their headquarters. At that exact moment, Dina arrived and, seeing Topan at the scene, assumed he was responsible for her father's death. In a panic and driven by grief, she shot him without hesitation. Fortunately, Topan managed to escape. Following the incident, it wasn't just Dina who was grieving Petrus' death. Topan and the rest of the Big Four were heartbroken as well, since they had always seen Petrus as a father figure. In the aftermath, the group decided to go their separate ways for a while to focus on their own paths and process the loss. Meanwhile, Dina moved into an apartment and became consumed with uncovering the truth behind her father's murder. Her obsession with the case led her to neglect her duties at work, prompting her commander to suggest she take some time off to rest and decided to take a vacation, realizing she hadn't had one in her 3 years of her career. At first, Dina resisted the idea, saying that work was the only thing keeping her going. However, after her commander's persistent encouragement, she finally accepted the travel brochure he handed her. Later, at home, Dina noticed a place called Villa Paradise featured in the brochure. The name triggered a memory, prompting her to quickly open her late father's storage box in search of answers and confirm her suspicions. Dina examined an old photo and saw her father at Villa Paradise, wearing the same hat as the man she believed had killed him. She also noticed he wasn't alone, for other kids were in the picture with him. Still unaware that the man in the hat was actually Topan, Dina remained convinced he was responsible for her father's death. Believing that one of the children in the photo might hold the key to identifying the killer, she immediately went to see Chief Hassan. She asked Hassan to help track down the kids in the photo, hoping it would finally lead to solving the case. However, instead of launching an investigation, Hassan dismissed them as just ordinary village kids. Frustrated by his lack of urgency, Dina grew angry. She was certain those kids were connected to her father's death and felt Hassan wasn't taking her seriously. Determined to get answers, she took a leave from work and set out to uncover the truth on her own. Eventually, Dina arrived at Bursi, the tropical island where Villa Paradise is located. She headed straight to the villa and came face to face with Topan. Caught off guard by her arrival, Topan was momentarily flustered but quickly composed himself and greeted her politely. Wasting no time, Dina asked if he knew her father and the 4 kids in the photograph. Topan calmly responded that he didn't know them. Dina decided to rent a room for the night, planning to continue her search the next day and question other locals near the villa. Initially, Topan tried to refuse her stay and came up with excuses to make her leave, but Dina had already paid and insisted on staying. Left with no choice, Topan took her to the room she would be staying in. While preparing the room, Topan noticed 2 suspicious men arriving at the villa. He assumed they might be Dina's fellow officers, but when he asked, Dina confirmed she had come alone. Growing wary, Topan returned to the lobby to confront the men and asked about their business, maintaining a friendly tone. During the conversation, he discovered that they were actually hitmen sent to spy on and kill Dina, likely ever since she began her journey to the villa. Determined to protect her, Topan distracted the 2 men by playing along and turning the radio up loud, ensuring Dina wouldn't overhear the tense exchange. Chaos broke out when the fight between Topan and the 2 hired assassins began. He was outnumbered and nearly overwhelmed. Just as things were turning dire, Dina suddenly called out, momentarily distracting the attackers. That brief pause gave Topan the upper hand he needed to defeat them both. Shortly after the fight ended, Dina spotted a photo of Petrus at the reception desk and discovered that Topan had been working at the villa for 3 years. Confronting him immediately, she demanded answers now that the hitmen were dealt with. Topan revealed that he and 3 others had been adopted and raised by Petrus since childhood. Hearing this, Dina finally understood why her father had so little time for her. He had been raising another family. Still convinced they were somehow linked to her father's death, she insisted Topan tell her where his other 3 siblings were. Reluctantly, he agreed to take her to them. The first person they visited was Django, who now worked as a healer. He greeted Dina warmly, though he was visibly uneasy about her presence. Still, he stayed composed and offered her a potion meant to cleanse negative energy. However, while chatting with Topan, Django accidentally grabbed the wrong item. Instead of the god's crown, he handed Dina a frog skin. The mix-up led to Dina experiencing intense hallucinations and sudden aggression. Just as things were spiraling, Pilar appeared, proudly showing off his golden gun. Mistaking him as a threat, Dina launched a fierce attack on him. Fortunately, Django reacted quickly and used a numbing technique on her, bringing the chaos to an end. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a hitman named Antonio working alongside a woman named Aloe and a group of ex-military men was eliminating his own teammates in a ruthless pursuit of greater power and profit. After the massacre, Antonio received a mysterious phone call instructing him to go to a specific location for a much more important mission. That place was Villa Paranise. His new orders were clear: track down and eliminate all members of the Big Four along with Dina. When Antonio and his team arrived at the villa, they found nothing but the bodies of 2 dead men. Realizing the Big Four had escaped, Antonio dispatched his men in all directions to search the area. Meanwhile, back at Django's hut, Topan had no choice but to tie Dina up outside to prevent her from causing any more chaos. Inside, he discussed with Django and Pilar the real reason Dina had come and informed them that hitmen were now targeting her. While they tried to come up with a plan to keep her safe, Dina managed to break free from her restraints. Just then, they spotted Antonio's men closing in on the hut. The hideout had been discovered and in seconds, heavy gunfire erupted as the hitmen launched a full-scale assault. Due to the escalating danger, Topan decided to go after Dina while Django and Pilar stayed behind to find a way to survive the attack. Although Pilar had never handled a weapon before, Django encouraged him to use the golden gun he had with him, but to their surprise, it turned out to be just a lighter. Left with no other choice, Django had to fight alone using only his bow and arrows. Fortunately, Topan reached Dina just in time. Being a skilled cop himself, and with Dina's martial arts expertise, the two of them quickly took down Antonio's men. During the fight, Dina realized that Topan wasn't just a regular receptionist and demanded the truth from him. However, Topan told her it wasn't the right moment to explain everything and urged her to trust him for now. He promised to tell her everything later, but they needed to rush back to the hut cause Django was still fighting and had no other weapons to protect himself. As the eldest, Django told Pilar to escape before they both got seriously hurt. Choosing to face Antonio and his men alone, Django fought bravely. But just as he began to run out of strength, Topan arrived, holding one of Antonio's men hostage. However, Antonio showed no concern and he coldly killed his own man without hesitation and turned his focus to Topan. A fierce battle broke out between the two, leaving Antonio severely injured. Antonio grinned at Topan and then admitted that he was the one who killed Petrus, revealing it was fueled by the deep resentment Petrus had for him. Antonio was actually Petrus' first adopted child, but Petrus ultimately cast him aside, believing he was uncontrollable and a failure. Fueled by revenge, Antonio vowed to eliminate the Big Four and Dina. Just as he was about to stab Topan in the eyes with a dagger, music suddenly played from Pilar's carriage and Dina was with him. They had come to rescue Topan and Django. Armed with a homemade bazooka Pilar built, they created a diversion, buying enough time for Topan and Django to escape. Realizing they had fled, Antonio jumped on his motorcycle and chased after them, firing repeatedly. In a desperate move, Topan launched fireworks at him, temporarily fending off the pursuit. Antonio was thrown off his motorcycle. After escaping from him and his men, Topan, Django, and Dina quickly searched for a safe place to hide. Dina helped treat Topan's injuries, but when she noticed a scar on his back, she became convinced he was the same man she believed had killed her father. Furious, she accused Topan of lying and attacked him in a fit of rage. Pilar quickly stepped in, trying to calm her down, worried their noise might draw attention from Antonio's men. He insisted that Topan wasn't the killer and promised that someone could confirm the truth. He urged Dina to meet that person before jumping to conclusions. Meanwhile, Topan and Django headed out to meet an informant named Bong Lo, hitching a ride on a passing vegetable truck. By morning, Dina and Pilar had arrived at the workplace of Alpha. Alpha is now working as a singer. Meanwhile, Topan and Django arrived at Bong Lo's bar and immediately questioned him about Antonio's identity, wondering if King Shero was actually the one responsible for Petrus' death. But things only became more confusing for Topan when he recalled that the killer had been referred to as Santo. So, he also asked about Santo and how he was connected to Antonio. As an informant and close friend of Petrus, Bong Lo revealed a set of documents to them. That's when the truth came out that Santo was actually Petrus' first adopted child, who later changed his name and became known as Antonio. After learning this, Topan and Django borrowed the documents to further investigate Antonio's background. Before they left, Bong Lo warned them that Antonio was currently hiring hitmen to eliminate the remaining members of the Big Four, who were scattered in different locations. At the same time, Alpha finally told Dina everything and explained who the Big Four really were and revealed the truth about Petru's past and identity. Alpha's revelation that her adoptive father was a killer deeply upset Dina, but she stood her ground, refusing to let anyone call Petrus a murderer. Their argument escalated until Alpha, overcome with anger, ended up pointing a gun at Dina. Just then, a group of mercenaries hired by Antonio to eliminate the Big Four launched an attack, opening fire on them. Fortunately, Dina, Alpha, and Pilar managed to take cover. Pilar was tasked with getting the civilians to safety, while Alpha and Dina stayed behind to fight off the attackers. Despite their earlier tension, the two worked together seamlessly in the intense battle and ultimately defeated the mercenaries. But the danger wasn't over when Alos suddenly appeared, wielding a bazooka. He launched a powerful blast at Dina and Alpha, knocking them out. Luckily, Topan and Django arrived just in time to save them. They attempted to escape using the boat they had prepared earlier, but discovered that Pilar had been captured and taken hostage by Antonio. The situation sparked a heated argument between Topan and Alpha, with both blaming each other for what happened. Dina stepped in to break up the fight, reminding them that this wasn't the time for conflict. Instead, she urged them to focus on finding a solution and rescuing Pilar. She encouraged the group to work together and come up with a plan to defeat Antonio and his men. That very night, wasting no time, they gathered their weapons and began preparing for the upcoming battle. Alpha even crafted his own set of weapons and created a special explosive device, dramatically naming it the Lucifer Fart 3000. Dina and Topan shared a quiet moment together, where Dina opened up to him and apologized for accusing him of killing their father. When the day of the attack arrived, the Big Four along with Dina headed to Villa Paranise, which Antonio had turned into his base and where Pilar was being held captive. As they approached, Antonio spotted a vehicle coming toward the villa and immediately ordered his men to open fire, assuming it carried some of the Big Four. But when there was no return fire, his men cautiously approached and opened the car door only to discover it was carrying the explosive Alpha had crafted, the infamous Lucifer Fart 3000. The bomb detonated, killing many of Antonio's men. As Alpha and Dina coolly walked away from the blast, they left the next phase of the plan to Django, trusting in his sniper skills. Meanwhile, Topan had already infiltrated the villa from behind. With the outer guards eliminated, the remaining enemies were swiftly taken down. Alpha was assigned to secure the first floor, while Topan and Dina headed upstairs to search for Pilar. Unexpectedly, they were ambushed by Vincent, who attacked Dina, while Topan was confronted by Antonio, leaving him no choice but to engage in a brutal, drawn-out fight. Vincent quickly overpowered Dina with his strength, nearly killing her. But despite her injured leg that was almost broken, Dina refused to back down. Fueled by determination, she fought back relentlessly and eventually managed to grab Vincent's gun, shooting him in the head and ending the fight. Wasting no time, Dina rushed to help Topan, who was drained from his battle with Antonio. She fired a shotgun at Antonio, but it wasn't enough to take him down because he was wearing a bulletproof vest. On the first floor, Alpha teamed up to fight Alo when Django arrived to assist. However, instead of helping, Django fumbled and got beaten up by Alo. Just as Alo was about to fire his bazooka at them, Django quickly threw down his own gun, triggering an explosion that caused Alo's weapon to explode. The battle didn't end there. Antonio managed to escape and attempted to use Pilar as leverage, threatening to kill him. But Topan has a secret weapon against Antonio, and it is to annoy him by repeatedly calling him on his real name Santo. The name clearly unsettled Antonio, and he grew increasingly agitated, demanding him stop calling him that. Distracted and enraged, Antonio didn't notice Pilar sneaking up on him. Seizing the moment, Topan stabbed him with a knife, finally putting an end to Antonio. After the chaos settled, Dina pulled Topan aside for a conversation. Earlier, She had already contacted Central Police and arranged for all members of the Big Four to surrender. However, she reassured them that she would do everything she could to secure their release as soon as possible. Instead of surrendering, Topan pulled Dina close and kissed her. She was so caught up in the moment that she didn't even realize he had already slipped handcuffs onto her wrists. Afterward, the Big Four thanked Dina and said their goodbyes, telling her they were going back into hiding for now but promised they'd return to be with her. Someone they now saw as part of their family. As the movie came to a close, it was finally revealed that the true mastermind behind all the chaos was none other than Hassan. However, Hassan himself was just following orders from a mysterious hitwoman he referred to as the Lady, someone with a deep grudge against Petrus and the Big Four. And that's where the story ends. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Also hit the notification bell to get updated on every video that we upload. Thank you and have a great day.